not avoidance.
That's right.
Avoidance is not the point. It's just the opposite of avoidance.
Yeah.
It's by stopping all the mental process, by stopping all of the running to and fro and being frantic and panicking and calming everything down, allows you to breathe and rest in the self and all of a sudden see clearly.
Yeah, and then you know what
to do. And that's, yeah.
And you can do the one right thing,
yeah,
rather than the 50 wrong things.
Right.
I have.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Definitely
I've done that.
Yes.
I have done that.
Yes.
And some days I did, you know, I go, oh, I don't have time. I'm late. I stayed up too late. I got to run. I got to go now. I got to do all these things. Boom, boom, boom. And it's just, the day is a disaster. Nothing goes right.
And then you have to redo it, like the mouthpieces. Yeah. I had to redo them.
Right.
Because I am still learning that lesson. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to remember. Yeah. So that's what I mean by it's like life is a spiritual practice.
Life is a spiritual practice.
It absolutely is. You know, I mean, if you're just aware in your life, how can you make your life work better? Pay attention to it. Pay attention. Listen to your body. It will tell you if that food was the right food or the wrong food.
Uh-oh.
Are you listening? Right? And I think that's the trap with spiritual teachers. Because spiritual teachers, oftentimes we think, I'll speak for myself. Okay. So it was always, the spiritual teacher knows better for me, so I should doubt my own experience. Okay. Right? It like naturally led to a doubting of my own experience, even if the spiritual teacher said don't doubt your own experience, because it was kind of like this thing of like, well, follow what I say and what I teach, right? But also just listen to yourself, because you're the guru. Well, they don't really work together. Sorry, there's a contradiction there. Yeah. So I mean, and that was another, like with spiritual teachers, I had some of the biggest spiritual experiences of my life. And oftentimes it's because a spiritual teacher can hold a certain vibration, and it's like sympathetic strings, like on a sitar or something. Yes. The other one will just naturally vibrate at that. So I think transmission works in that way. Right?
Interesting, yes.
So just generally, just be around people you admire, and that will rub off on you sympathetically, right? I mean, you'll just naturally start to resonate where they resonate. So be very careful with who you hang out with. I heard a quote sometimes like, you know who you are by rolling together the 5 people you hang around with the most.
That can be an awakening experience.
Yes. So all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, that's true. And one of those people can be God. I mean, if you meditate and have a spiritual practice and you're like with God, or you pray to the Divine Mother, or you have a deity that you worship, or what have you, right? You could be spending quality time with that energy, or that, non-physical, physical. If it's real to you, it's real. So if you're having a real experience, and what I mean by a real experience is you have a real, the difference between fantasy and reality. Fantasy is kind of like, oh, I'm picturing a castle in my mind. Oh, it's a real castle. Well, no, it's not a real castle. It's a real castle in my mind. It's reality. It's real, but it's not a physical castle. Right? But if seeing that castle and imagining myself sitting in it in a king's seat, I'm in my castle. Yes, okay. I'm in my power. I'm in my strength spot. If visualizing that gets me that experience, that's real. That's a real experience. That's real. Right? So, absolutely, hold on to that. That's good. But I'm not a king. I'm a king in my castle, in my imagination, which makes me feel empowered and more able to tackle the rest of my life. Great.
But you don't go around telling people to bow down to you.
No, because they're not in my. Maybe the people in my imagination, in my castle, bow down to your king. Yeah, those people will. I think my wife might hit me if I told her to bow down to me. But I'm the king in my imaginary castle, honey. I'm not in your imaginary castle, dear.
I would draw a slightly. It's an interesting concept. I would draw a slightly different picture of.
Sure.
I mean, I do something similar in meditation, right? But these are examples that were given by lamas or masters or whatever. Okay, in order to, really feel the divine presence or know that the divine presence is here now. Okay, but to me, an example of a delusion would be, you're in meditation and you've grasped, you caught some vision or some thought and you went with it. You went into that imaginary place, okay, and now you're getting a message from some deceased being or some alien being who is now giving you, a special mission, and only you're the one that has it. Okay, and then you come out of there going, "Oh, I have been given this piece." Now, there's some danger space there because there are some things, but there are some things in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition that actually talk about receiving information, sacred information and things. Okay, so I mean. But these are high lamas who've been at this for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and maybe they know something we don't know, okay? But to me, that's a very dangerous place to go. I mean, I think, interestingly, about channelers, okay? Channeling something, and now, they have some special knowledge to give to the world, and, is it real or is it a delusion? And people can buy into that delusion. Yeah. This happens with false gurus. This happens with false teachers, and there's plenty of them. Okay? Do they believe what they're teaching, what they're espousing? I absolutely believe. A lot of them do. Right. Some of them are just plain charlatans.
Yeah.
But so that's, I think, people who haven't meditated for a long time, or people who haven't had some experiences with the real masters and this and that. And one of the things we're going to get to in this podcast is talking about how do you know the real deal when you meet the real deal. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay? Because some people still hold that hard line, if you meet the Buddha on the path, shoot him, kill him, okay? Because he can't be real, right? But because you're the Buddha, whatever. I mean, Buddha's inside. The divine is inside of us. But yeah, there's definitely, and like you say, I mean, you've had some good teachers, you've had some bad teachers probably, right? I mean, but it all plays in. It's all lessons to be learned, right? There's a way to look at every experience, even the bad ones or scary ones or not so sure ones, of what you're learning from the experience.
Yeah. So, no, that's a really good point. And the way I discern the difference between delusion and experience is experience is literally my experience, and a delusion is my meaning I made from the experience. Like, oh, so now I had an experience of someone in a vision tell me something. Like, God in my vision told me this about myself. Well, that was helpful for me, but I'm not going around telling everybody what God looks like.
Right.
That's what God looked like for me in that moment, because it helped me. It was like, right? So here's a really good example, because this was an experience I had with a spiritual teacher that was very helpful. So I was talking to the spiritual teacher, and she said, okay, so what's happening, when is this event coming up? And I said, it's on November 5th. And she said, do you know that? And I said, yes. And she said, are you sure? And I said, yes, John told me. And then she said, well, then you don't know that. What you know is that John told you it was on November 5th. So what I want you to tell me now is that John told you it was on November 5th. Because otherwise, you're telling me something that you don't know.
That's a good example.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like that when we're having our visions or experiences. Like I've had many visions of past lives, right? But honestly, I'm not entirely sure if they're real or they're not real but what I do know is that they've been incredibly helpful at the moments I've remembered them. And it doesn't matter to me if they're real or not. Like, which one's right? Neither is right. Let's be here now in this moment, and you're a loving person, and I'm a loving person, and we're having this great podcast, and this is what's actually real. And that was just something that helped me back in that past time that actually is a moot point, other than that we're bringing it up as an example on this topic, right? So it was very real for me in that moment, and now it's kind of like this kind of an understanding of a theory I have about how past lives can be helpful.
Yeah, I would agree with that from my own experience as well. And usually they happen at times when you are going, help! I mean,
yes.
Something is really intense, is not working in your life, and you can't figure out why, and then boom,
yes,
you're shown it.
And that's a good thing.
You understand it, and then everything changes.
Yeah, and if you're in that place of like, I don't know what's going on in my life, I feel completely lost, I'm just like, and you're sitting there trying to hold on to something, trying to make sense of it, don't. Literally, that you're in a fantastic opportunity place, let it go, be okay not knowing. Literally, I went through the process in my life. Part of my spiritual process was I can remember going through moments of like sitting there going, I don't know where I am, I don't know what's going on, I don't know. I used to have this sense of spatial recognition, like where I was in the room or in the house. And then I remember meditating one time, and then all of a sudden I didn't know where I was in the entire world. And then I realized, oh, this is part of letting go of the mind. Not needing to know. I don't need to know where I am in the universe, if I'm a man, if I'm a woman. I don't need to know if I'm rich or if I'm poor, or I don't need to know any of that, because the love is I'm being taken care of. So I can be an innocent baby meditating and be taken care of, and actually the less I know, the easier I'm making it for God to take care of me. And I just say God because I don't know a better word. But it works for me with Buddhists, Hindus. Buddhists, don't like to say there's God, but I just don't. It feels like I'm being taken care of beyond and you could call that my higher self, I suppose, but it doesn't feel like a me. So God feels more accurate to me, because there's no sense of identification with it, right? But it's also not separate from me. So in that case, you'd have to say there's only me and it's my higher self. But I think this is where it gets tricky, because in the West, there's this very kind of almost, pardon me, but self-righteous thing. They're trying to take my power away, and it's like it's all about me and and yes, that's half, and on the other half, I don't know how. I mean, who got me free from gurus? Another guru.
Another guru.
Yeah, I literally went to go see another guru, and then all of a sudden I realized that I still wanted like that
pat on the head
from a guru to tell me that I was okay. And I'm like, what is well, huh? It's like I realized there's a lot of healthy stuff that goes on with being a disciple, but the unhealthy one is the need for validation, to feel like I'm okay, right? And I needed some form of, and it could be, for some people it might be their father or their parents or but for me it was a guru. And it had to be this big, important guru who was, you know, fully realized, because if it was just some, you know, like it wouldn't really matter. You know, I could, my mind would say, well, I don't really know, you know. So then finally I realized that, and I literally went to go see another spiritual teacher because deep down inside I knew it was the right thing for me to do, but I felt like I was blasphemous to the other teacher that I was studying with.
Yeah, you
like
felt guilty.
Cheating.
Okay, you're cheating. Yeah, no.
I was cheating. And letting myself feel that, burn through it, love the feeling, but know that it wasn't reality. Like, having the feeling was reality. What the feeling was saying, right? That's how it works, right? So the reality is I'm having this intense feeling. Right. The illusion is that it's saying life is a certain way that it's not. It's like saying I'm an elephant. I'm not an elephant, right? That's the illusion. You know, I have a feeling saying you're such an elephant. And you're like, I'm not an elephant. But it'd be the same thing as saying, I'm not loved. You know, which has been a big one in my life, right? I'm not loved, or I'm not important, or, you know, I can't give my podcast, share my podcast with the world.
Anybody who wants it, yeah.
Yeah. That's all false bullshit. That's the illusion. It's not the feeling that's the illusion. You're having the feeling. That's real.
That's real.
But the meaning is the illusion. So what happens is someone might have this experience of Jesus coming to them, or someone saying, you are divine. You can lead the world, right? And then they make a meaning out of it. That's the meaning is the delusion. Because you know what? Jesus could come down and say that to every single person on the earth. You are divine. You are God. The universe revolves around you. Your intention creates the universe. Create the most beautiful universe you can. Right? Jesus could say that to everybody. Now the meaning-making machine of the brain might misinterpret that, right? And say, I'm better than other people. I'm more special. Therefore, I need to fix them all. And they need to all bow down to me. And, right? You see how it can get misinterpreted. Right? But it's still a true message that just got a delusion placed on it. But it was a real experience. So I'm all about what's the real experience, right? Like the experience of with the teacher. You know, don't. John told me it was Thursday. That was the actual truth. I didn't actually know if it was Thursday because it wasn't Thursday.
Oh.
And then I've come to realize in my life, you know, assume and make an ass out of you and me, how much we assume we know that we don't know. And this is where the spiritual butchering starts happening, where spirituality isn't about learning more, it's about actually butchering all our ideas of what spirituality is, and getting stupider and stupider and stupider is actually getting more spiritual.
Wait, are you saying getting stupider and stupider is getting more spiritual?
Yes, that's what it felt like to me. That was my experience. Because all of a sudden I had less knowledge. I was less erudite. I was less, now I know nothing. Now I'm just sharing with you things that I've experienced. I'm actually not smart. I don't have any spiritual knowledge. You know, I'm not sharing with you spiritual knowledge. I can take no claim to being anybody who knows anything about spirituality. But what I do know is what my experience has been. Right? And so I'm sharing that. So I don't feel smart. I don't feel smart at all. I just feel real.
Real.
I just feel real. I'm just sharing my real experience with you. So being real is far more spiritual than being spiritual in my experience.
Being real is far more spiritual
than being
spiritual.
Yeah.
And I think we'll leave you with that thought. Because when we go back and look at this video, I'm sure there's so many things in here. It may not be published as one long video. It may be part 1, part 2, part 3, maybe even 4. We'll see.